Our journey this time plunges into a scene that has really captivated thinkers for centuries. Imagine a shadowy twilight grove. Okay. Nestled by the still, cold waters of Lake Nemi in ancient Italy. The only sound is the gentle lapping of the water, which is, a stark contrast to the grim reality unfolding. Pacing to and fro, now cloaked in gloom, now maybe illuminated by pale moonlight, stands this solitary figure.
Right.
A glint of steel at his shoulder hints at his precarious power. This is the king of the wood at Nemi and his reign. It comes with this chilling stipulation.
Yeah, this is the really strange part.
He holds his office only by right of conquest, by actually slaying his predecessor. And that predecessor. He himself had to first pluck a golden bough from a sacred tree before he could even challenge the reigning king.
It's just so bizarre.
It's a rule so utterly bizarre, so fundamentally brutal that, well, ancient sources declared it had no parallel in classical antiquity, just nothing else like it.
And it's precisely this rudeness and barbarity, as Sir James Frazer later described it, that sparked one of the most sprawling and ambitious inquiries into human thought ever undertaken.
Right, Frazer. The Golden Bough.
Exactly. Frazer, the author of that monumental 12-volume work, The Golden Bough, he saw in this isolated, violent custom a profound window into something universal.
Universal. How so?
Well, he thought it showed the essential similarity with which the human mind, like across all cultures and ages, elaborated its first crude philosophy of life. His mission became to go farther afield.
Exploring everything.
Yes, spanning continents, mythologies, rituals, trying to detect the fundamental universal motives behind such unique and often, unsettling institutions. He believed that by understanding these seemingly primitive practices, we could peel back the layers of civilization.
Get to the core.
Get to the core, uncover the foundational workings of human intellect and our innate attempts to control an often unpredictable world. It was a massive undertaking.
So our deep dive today is into this very work, The Golden Bough, a book that, despite, its controversies, profoundly shaped how we understand the origins of religion, magic, and maybe even the very foundations of scientific thought.
It cast a long shadow, definitely.
We're going to unearth surprising facts and draw some really compelling connections, starting with Frazer's foundational categories of magic, the sort of bedrock of early human attempts at control. From there, we'll dive into the often terrifying and brutal nature of divine kingship, exploring how life, death, and resurrection cycles played out in ancient rituals across the globe. But we won't stop there.
No, the critique is important too.
Exactly. Crucially, we'll then step back to critically examine Frazer's grand theories, exploring how modern anthropologists and philosophers, most notably Ludwig Wittgenstein, have reevaluated his monumental achievement.
Right, Wittgenstein had some strong opinions on Frazer.
This journey promises to reveal not just ancient beliefs, but also maybe a hidden mythology in our own language. Get ready for some truly illuminating moments, hopefully, that will connect the distant past to our present-day understanding of ourselves, and maybe even to the unspoken rules that still govern our own lives. So let's begin at the absolute core of what Frazer identified as primitive thought. This concept of sympathetic magic. He kind of framed it as pseudoscience, or maybe a pseudo-art.
Right, not quite science, not quite art, something in between.
Yeah, and he thought it emerged from two deeply ingrained, yet, in his view, ultimately mistaken applications of basic human thought processes. Imagine our early ancestors, grappling with a world full of unpredictable weather, elusive game, mysterious illnesses.
A lot of uncertainty.
Totally. Their minds, like ours, were wired to seek patterns, to make associations. But sometimes those associations led them down the path of magic. The first fundamental principle he identified was the law of similarity, which states, quite simply, that like produces like. This is the cornerstone of what Frazer termed homeopathic or imitative magic.
Makes sense. Imitate what you want.
Right. If you desired rain, you might mimic it by sprinkling water. If you wanted a successful hunt, you might perform a ritual dance that imitates the swift capture of your prey. The logic, within that magical framework was compelling. Perform an action, and a similar outcome will follow.
And what's truly insightful here is how Frazer perceived the origin of these laws of association. He believed they are excellent in themselves and absolutely essential to the working of the human mind.
So the thinking process itself isn't flawed.
Not fundamentally, no. When correctly applied, these same associative principles lead to the development of science. When misapplied, they lead to magic. It's not about intelligence, really.
Mm.
They were applying sophisticated associative principles, the very same ones that drive scientific inquiry, but maybe with premises about causality that we now understand to be flawed. The driving force, as Frazer saw it, was this innate human desire to turn the order of natural phenomena to his own advantage.
The need for control.
Exactly. This quest for control, for agency in a chaotic world, led to the second principle, the law of contiguity. This law posits that things that were once in contact remain connected, even after they've been separated.
Like hair or nails.
Precisely. This underpins contagious magic. Think of how a lock of hair, a discarded piece of clothing, or even a footprint might still hold a sympathetic link to its original owner, allowing for magical influence at a distance. It's a powerful testament to the human imagination constructing this interconnected universe, where everything carries a lingering trace of its former associations.
Okay. And if sympathetic magic is about what you do to make things happen, then its inverse, its sort of shadowy reflection, is the concept of taboos.
Exactly. These are what Frazer called negative magic, the stringent rules about what you must not do to prevent undesired outcomes.
The prohibitions.
Right. And crucially, these prohibitions often draw from the very same laws of similarity and contiguity we just discussed.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, consider this vivid one from the Eskimo, the indigenous peoples of the Arctic. Young boys were strictly forbidden from playing cat's cradle.
Cat's cradle, why?
The rationale was simple, yet profound within their worldview. If they did, their fingers might later become entangled in a harpoon line, mirroring the tangled strings of the game, leading to, a perilous situation during a hunt.
Wow. That's a direct application of the law of similarity. Tangled strings, tangled fingers.
Precisely. It highlights a profound belief in the power of imitation, even in prevention.
And this pattern of homeopathic taboo wasn't isolated, right? You mentioned the Huzuls.
Yeah, journey with me to the Carpathian Mountains, home to the Huzuls, an ethnic group in what's now Ukraine. Here, a hunter's wife was forbidden from spinning thread while her husband ate.
Okay, why spinning?
The fear was that the game, in sympathy with the turning and winding spindle, would turn and wind like the spindle in the forest, making it impossible for her husband to hit it with an arrow.
That's incredibly imaginative.
Oh.
The hunter's success tied to his wife's spinning.
It is, isn't it? It speaks to a worldview where every action, no matter how mundane, could have these far-reaching, even cosmic implications.
Okay, so that's similarity. What about contiguity and taboos?
Hey, let's explore how the law of contiguity informed taboos. We shift focus to the wives of camphor hunters in Sarawak on the island of Borneo.
Camphor hunters, okay.
While their husbands were away seeking these precious aromatic crystals, the wives were not allowed to touch a comb.
A comb.
Seriously. The concern was that the spaces between the comb's teeth would sympathetically correspond to empty spaces in the camphor tree, preventing the valuable crystals from forming.
Whoa.
And what's particularly striking here is the social reinforcement. Husbands reportedly used knots in the tree, so an absence of camphor, as evidence of infidelity back home.
No way. So the comb became tied to marital fidelity too.
Exactly. A simple comb transformed into this potent symbol of potential economic and marital disaster, illustrating a powerful belief in the enduring, sympathetic connection between things once in contact. It shows how magic could intertwine with social norms and accusations.
That is wild. Okay, what about the Kai Islands example? That sounded intense.
Oh, it is. For a truly captivating example of a sympathetic contiguity, let's turn to the Key Islands, a small archipelago in modern-day Indonesia. When a vessel was launched for a distant port, the very stretch of beach where it had rested became sacred.
Sacred.
Yeah, impassable until its safe return. To cross it prematurely, they believed, would cause the ship to perish at sea.
Wow.
But the taboos went even further. 3 or 4 specially chosen young girls had to remain absolutely motionless in a room, crouched on their mats with their hands clasped between their knees, not even turning their heads.
Completely still. Wow.
Their stillness was believed to translate sympathetically to the stability of the distant ship, preventing it from pitching and tossing during its voyage. They couldn't even eat any food during this period, apparently, as that too might disrupt the delicate magical equilibrium affecting the ship.
My goodness. That's an incredible level of commitment.
It is. It's a powerful illustration of a community's desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable, projecting their own actions onto the vast, dangerous ocean.
So what becomes immediately apparent across these diverse examples? It's not just a set of arbitrary rules, is it?
Not at all. It's a profoundly imaginative and interconnected worldview. It speaks to the human mind's deep-seated need for control, for a sense of agency, when facing the overwhelming unpredictability of nature, distant ventures, or just, the vagaries of luck.
Right, the stakes were incredibly high.
Absolutely. A hunter's success meant survival, a ship's safe return ensured trade and connection, the accumulation of resources like camphor was vital. These taboos, far from being irrational, were perfectly rational within the magical premises they accepted. They provided a coherent, albeit ultimately ineffective by our standards, framework for understanding and attempting to manipulate their world. It shows how deeply intertwined individual actions were with the collective well-being, and how elaborate the system of cause and effect became when infused with sympathetic magic. It's really a testament to the sheer ingenuity of the human mind in building a consistent framework, even if that framework is based on, well, flawed initial assumptions.
Okay, so from those invisible threads of magic influencing daily life, let's shift our attention now to the highest echelons of primitive society, where these magical beliefs often converged with the very fabric of power.
Right, the institution of divine kingship.
Exactly. Frazer developed this theory he called the magician's progress. A fascinating narrative, really. It's about how individuals who initially practiced private magic, for personal gain or protection, gradually evolved into public functionaries.
From private practice to public office.
Yeah. Over time, these powerful sorcerers accumulated immense influence, eventually becoming chiefs or even kings. Frazer observed that the profession of a sorcerer, far from being lowly, actually attracted the ablest and most ambitious men, precisely because it offered such potent prospects of honor, wealth, and power, such as hardly any other career could offer.
It was a path to the top.
Pretty much. A pathway to unprecedented authority.
And this ascension presents a truly fascinating paradox. Frazer believed that while the acuter minds among these sorcerers might, at some level, perceive how to dupe their weaker brother, seeing through the magical fallacies.
They knew it wasn't entirely real.
Maybe. But many others were apparently sincerely convinced of their own powers. This blurred line between genuine belief and strategic manipulation is crucial.
Interesting.
Frazer argued that this rise of the magician into a public, powerful figure, often leading to monarchy, was actually very beneficial for emerging mankind, helping societies transition from what he saw as savagery.
Beneficial.
He saw the democratic savage, as he put it, as being enslaved to the past, rigidly bound by custom and the counsel of numerous, often squabbling elders. In contrast, he believed that monarchy, by concentrating decision-making power in the hands of a single, capable leader, even if their claim to power was rooted in magic-enabled progress,
Allowed for change.
allowed for more decisive action and societal development. It was a pretty radical idea for his time, seeing monarchy as a progressive force emerging from early democracy, or at least communal decision-making.
Okay, so the implications for the king himself, once in power, were profound, right? These divine kings and priests weren't just rulers.
Not at all. They were believed to be endowed with supernatural powers. The community genuinely believed that the course of nature is supposed to be more or less under his control.
So responsible for everything, weather, crops.
Everything. The health of the community, the success of hunts. His very person was seen as the dynamical center of the universe, where even the slightest irregularity on his part may overthrow the delicate equipoise of nature itself.
Wow, that's an extraordinary burden.
Absolutely. It translated into his entire life, down to its minutest details, having to be perfectly regulated, governed by this incredibly stringent web of taboos. Any misstep, any perceived weakness, could bring calamity upon the entire realm. Can you imagine the immense psychological and social weight of that crown?
It's almost unthinkable.
Mm.
And the consequences of this belief were, well, extreme.
Truly extreme. Leading to some harrowing examples of royal taboos and the harsh punishments for perceived failure. Consider the priestly King Kukulu of Lower Guinea in what's now Angola.
Okay.
He was so sacred, so integral to the cosmic order, that he could not leave his house or even his chair.
Couldn't leave his chair.
Apparently not. The belief was that if he lay down, no wind would arise and navigation would be stopped. He was, quite literally, thought to regulate the atmosphere. His personal stasis ensured the world order. And this belief in the king's direct magical influence led to extreme seclusion for many monarchs. The fetish king of Benin in West Africa might not quit his palace. The king of Onitsha in Nigeria does not step out of his house into the town unless a human sacrifice is made.
Human sacrifice just to go outside.
Seems so. Kings of Ethiopia were worshipped but mostly kept shut up in their palaces, and the Mosini, people of the Congo Basin, kept their king in close custody at the top of a high tower. Their physical confinement wasn't just about security, it was a ritual enactment of their cosmic responsibility, ensuring their divine power was contained and directed properly.
And if they failed, if the rain didn't come or the harvest was bad?
The repercussions were swift and brutal. In West Africa, the Banjars in Sierra Leone would apparently insult and beat their king if the rain failed, convinced he was withholding it.
They'd beat the king.
That's what Frazer reports. In Luango, also West Africa, a king was accused of a bad heart and summarily deposed if the harvest failed. In Usukuma, Tanzania, a sultan was simply driven out for drought. These weren't subtle political maneuvers, they were direct, visceral responses to perceived cosmic failures. The king was the ultimate guarantor, and his shortcomings could spell disaster. Sometimes, kings even had to annually prove their fitness.
How?
The king of Onitsha, for instance, had to dance outside his palace walls at the Feast of Yams, carrying a great weight, generally a sack of earth, to prove he could still support the burden and cares of state. Failure meant immediate deposition.
So leadership wasn't just inherited, it had to be constantly proven.
Exactly. Proven through continuous public demonstration of divine power and physical vigor.
Okay, this brings us to perhaps the most dramatic and certainly the most shocking aspect of divine kingship. The practice of ritual regicide. Here's where it gets really unsettling.
Yeah, this is the part that often grabs people.
Kings were often put to death, not as punishment necessarily, but to preserve the vigor of the divine spirit they embodied. Take the Shilluk people of Central Africa living along the Nile in South Sudan.
Okay, the Shilluk.
They believed that if their king showed any sign of sickness, weakness, or old age, the fertility of men, cattle, and crops would all fail, leading to nothing less than the entire extinction of all life.
Total collapse.
So, to prevent this, they ensured the king died while still hale and hearty, often when he could no longer satisfy his numerous wives, apparently a clear sign of diminishing generative power.
Right, a very specific, culturally defined sign of decline.
And this wasn't seen as a natural death. They would euphemistically say he had gone away, like his divine ancestors, ensuring the renewal of the land through his controlled demise. It's a profound, if brutal, commitment to the community above the individual, isn't it?
It really is. And the standards for embodying divinity were incredibly exacting. Any physical defect could seal a king's fate, seen as a flaw in the divine conduit.
Like what kind of defect?
Well, Frazer mentions the king of Sofala on the coast of Mozambique, who dared to survive the loss of a front tooth, and was considered an exceptional, bold reformer for it.
Just for losing a tooth.
Apparently, Ethiopian kings were chosen specifically for their size, strength, and beauty, and absolutely could not have any blemish. Famously, King Cormac Mac Art of Ireland abdicated after losing an eye, understanding that his physical imperfection disqualified him from ruling from the sacred hill of Tara.
So physical perfection was paramount.
It seems so. In some cultures, the term of a king's reign was fixed, regardless of his vigor. In the province of Kulakere, southern India, kings reigned for exactly 12 years.
Only 12 years? Then what?
At the end of this term, during a great festival, the king would mount a scaffolding and publicly, well, it's gruesome, cut off his nose and then his ears and his lips and all his members before finally cutting his own throat as a sacrifice to the idol.
Oh my God.
And the new king had to be present, looking on, a silent testament to the martyrdom he too would one day undertake. It's an almost incomprehensible level of self-sacrifice for the perceived good of the realm.
And what's particularly chilling is that in some traditions, killing the king wasn't just an obligation due to infirmity or a fixed term. It was the very means of succession itself.
Right. An old native historian in Bengal recorded that whoever kills the king and succeeds in placing himself on that throne is immediately acknowledged as king.
Just kill the king, take the throne.
No hereditary descent, no complex process. Pure, violent conquest, legitimizing the strongest. In Pasye, a kingdom on Sumatra, a sort of frenzied fury would sometimes seize the people, apparently. They'd march through the streets chanting, "The king must die."
Wow.
The man who struck the fatal blow, if he was of royal lineage, became legitimate if he could hold the throne for a single day. The records tell of 3 kings massacred in a single day on one occasion.
3 in one day.
It illustrates the profound belief that such a divine being could only perish by violence if he deserved it, maybe for his sins, and that his death opened the door for new, revitalized power.
So this naturally leads us to ask, what fundamental human fear or desire compelled communities to enforce such brutal customs?
It really speaks to a deep, primal anxiety about nature's unpredictability, doesn't it? And the unwavering belief that the vitality of the leader was directly linked to the prosperity, the very survival of the entire group.
If the king is the god, or the spirit of nature,
Then his continued vigor was paramount. We also see traditions of temporary kings or substitutes, or even the tragic sacrifice of the king's own son, like with Athamas in Thessaly, ancient Greece. His children were apparently prepared for sacrifice to avert famine or ensure fertility.
sacrificing the son instead.
The son was believed to share the divine essence of the father, making him an appropriate stand-in when the primary conduit of divinity was threatened. These were desperate measures, born of desperate times, where the boundary between human ruler and divine power was so profoundly blurred that human life itself became a tool for, well, cosmic manipulation.
Okay, our journey continues as we explore the deeper pulse of nature and these ancient beliefs about the fates of the soul, starting with the profound significance of trees.
Right, back to the trees.
We started at the mysterious Nemi Grove, but tree worship, or dendrolatry, extends far beyond that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Often intrinsically associated with fertility, vital energy, even the breath of life.
Absolutely. Across vast swaths of Europe, the worship of the oak tree, or an oak god, was shared by basically all branches of the Aryan stock, intrinsically linked to powerful sky deities like Zeus or Jupiter.
The god of thunder and rain.
Exactly. Divinity of the sky, rain, thunder. Revered sites like Dodona, with its oracular oak, were places where the god's voice was believed to be heard in the rustling leaves and the crash of thunder, emphasizing the tree's powerful connection to the most elemental forces of nature.
Forces that provided rain for crops, protected from lightning.
The essentials.
Now, what's particularly illuminating here is the dual conception of tree spirits that Frazer identified. Can you break that down?
Sure. They were either seen as incorporate in the tree, meaning the spirit animated the tree and would suffer and die along with it, or as independent spirits that merely inhabited the tree, able to quit and return at pleasure.
Sort of like a soul entering and leaving a body.
Kind of like that, yeah. A powerful example comes from the people of Nias, an island off Sumatra. They believe that when a tree dies, its liberated spirit doesn't just vanish. Instead, it becomes a malevolent demon.
That demon.
Yeah, capable of killing coconut palms or even children by merely perching on a housepost. This belief led to the careful protection of certain trees, underscoring the vital, if sometimes dangerous, connection between humanity and the arboreal world. It wasn't just reverence, it was a deeply pragmatic concern for their safety and prosperity, a constant negotiation with the spirit world embodied in the plants around them.
And these beliefs weren't solely about fear or protection. They were often invoked for prosperity and the renewal of life, right?
Yeah.
Like fertility rituals.
Exactly. The fertilizing power of trees was directly invoked in rituals for both human and agricultural abundance. Consider the Maori of New Zealand. Barren women would apparently embrace sacred trees, sometimes ones associated with ancestral navel strings, hoping to conceive male or female children, depending on which side of the tree they embraced.
Embracing a tree to conceive.
That was the belief. In Europe, a widespread and enduring custom, particularly on May Day, was setting up green bushes or tall, slender trees before the houses of beloved maidens or newlyweds.
Oh yeah, maypoles and things.
Similar idea. This wasn't merely decorative, it symbolized the bestowal of blessings and fertility by the tree spirit itself. A tangible way to invite life, growth, and abundance into their homes and families, mirroring the burgeoning life of spring.
Okay. And this brings us to another fascinating layer. How these abstract notions of life-giving power in trees are made concrete through human representation.
Right. Figures like Green George, a traditional figure among some gypsy communities in Eastern Europe. He's a lad completely concealed in green leaves and blossoms who parades through villages, showering cattle with food and bestowing blessings.
Literally covered in leaves.
Yeah, or the May King and May Queen in English folk traditions. These human proxies are not just symbolic, they are believed to embody this beneficent vegetation spirit, performing rituals to ensure the well-being of the community, from fertile fields to thriving livestock. It's a remarkable example of how human culture gives form and agency to the natural world, bringing the spirit closer, making it palpable and interactive.
Okay, here's where it gets truly captivating, delving into the very rhythm of existence. The concept of dying and resurrected gods of vegetation.
Ah, yes. Adonis, Attis, Osiris.
Exactly. Figures like Adonis, Attis, Osiris, Dionysus, and Demeter. Their myths and cults across the ancient world profoundly parallel the annual cycle of plant life. They embody growth and flourishing, followed by decay and apparent death, only to be reborn again with the new season.
The cycle of nature personified.
Right. The ancients perceived a deeply profound connection between this annual growth and decay of vegetation and the fates of their most important deities. This wasn't just sentimental or poetic. It was seen as absolutely crucial for their very survival, a cosmic reflection of their agrarian existence. Their lives, quite literally, depended on the return of spring and the bounty of the harvest.
And what's particularly striking, something Frazer meticulously documented, is the astonishing similarity in their worship, often noted by ancient observers themselves. Herodotus and Plutarch, for example, found the rites of Osiris in Egypt and Dionysus in Greece almost indistinguishable.
Same themes: death, lamentation, rebirth.
Exactly. These were not merely symbolic acts. They were believed to be essential to the continuation of life itself. Take the gardens of Adonis, for instance, cultivated in various parts of the ancient Mediterranean.
What were those?
They were essentially charms to promote vegetation growth. Small pots were planted with fast-growing corn, like barley blades, in moist, sandy soil, often with turmeric. Then they were ritually presented to a karma tree by the Orons and Mundas of Bengal, or placed on windowsills in Sardinia, sometimes accompanied by female statuettes or Priapus-like figures.
And again.
These nascent plants, after a brief flourish, would wither and die, and then be mourned as the dying god, a ritual microcosm of the larger agricultural cycle.
Wow. And the Osiris myth fits this too.
Perfectly. Born of sty and earth, he was credited with teaching humans the use of corn. When he was murdered and his body mangled and scattered across the land, this myth was seen as symbolizing the sowing or winnowing of grain,
Or maybe even.
or even the scattering of a sacrificed human victim to fertilize the fields, ensuring future abundance. Every deceased Egyptian was identified with Osiris, hoping to share in his resurrection and eternal life.
And we see similar beliefs in the Americas, the Cherokee corn spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. The Cherokee invoked a corn spirit known as the Old Woman, who apparently sprang from the blood of a slain old woman. They performed ritual weeping at the four corners of cornfields and meticulously left a clean trail from the field to the house so that the corn might be encouraged to stay at home.
Trying to persuade the corn to stay.
Exactly. These intricate rituals were designed not just to honor, but to actively persuade the crop's return and abundance, revealing this profound sense of codependence between humanity and the plant world.
This deep, almost existential fear of a dying spirit also manifested in these killing the corn spirit traditions.
Yes. Consider the legend of Literiuses, son of King Midas in Phrygia. He was said to reap corn with extraordinary speed, but also killed strangers who approached him. He was himself ritually slain, wrapped in a corn sheaf, beheaded, and cast into a river.
Ouch.
This myth echoes in European harvest customs, where a mock killing of the last thresher was common. He was often called the cow, or corn bull, enveloped in straw or animal hides.
So these traditions reveal a deeply practical understanding.
Yeah, though maybe unarticulated, that the life of man is inextricably bound up with that of plants. The performance of these emotionally charged rites, followed by the inevitable return of spring and bountiful harvests, serve to powerfully reinforce the belief that their enchantments were indeed taking effect.
It gave them confidence, agency.
Exactly. It inspired a vital confidence and a sense of agency in a world they felt they could influence through ritual, even if the underlying causality was magical. It speaks to a deep psychological need for order and predictability in the face of nature's cycles.
Okay, now let's delve into an even more abstract, yet utterly fascinating concept that Frazer explored: the fragility of the soul itself. This is the widespread belief in what he termed an external soul.
Ah, the external soul. This is a really strange one.
It's the radical idea that a person's life or vital essence could reside not within their physical body, but outside it, often in an animal or an inanimate object. What are we to make of this?
It challenges everything we think about the self.
Right. The notion that your true life, your innermost vital essence, could be hidden far away in something like a small green parrot, hundreds of thousands of miles from you. It offers a powerful way to conceive of both immortality and profound vulnerability.
Yeah, because if that parrot dies.
You die too. This external soul is often envisioned as a concrete, material thing, capable of being seen, handled, and crucially, destroyed, directly impacting the person it belongs to. It fundamentally challenges our modern internalized concept of self.
And this concept is richly illustrated in folklore and real-world beliefs across the globe, indicating maybe a shared human intuition about the porous boundaries of the self.
Like in fairy tales.
Oh yeah, fairy tales abound with examples. The magician Punchkin, whose life depended on a parrot in a cage. Or the Kabyle ogre from North Africa, whose fate was tied to an egg inside a pigeon inside a camel hidden in the sea. The Magyar witch from Hungary, her life hidden in a shining beetle within a series of nested animals and objects.
These incredibly elaborate hiding places.
Exactly. But beyond fiction, we find deeply held beliefs. Among the Flubis in southern Africa, a chief's soul was believed to be literally in magnificent ox horns placed on the roof, protecting the whole household.
In ox horns.
Seems so. In New Britain, Papua New Guinea, members of the Inuit Society received a soul stone, whose breakage was an evil omen signaling impending death. There is even the historical account of Simeon, Prince of Bulgaria, whose life was believed to be tied to a specific column's capital in Constantinople. When the capital was removed, he died.
Wow. These examples powerfully highlight a worldview where personal identity and vitality were just not solely confined to the physical body.
Not at all.
And this externalization wasn't just about the soul. It extended to other personal attributes considered vital or dangerous, leading to a myriad of intricate taboos, like shadows.
Yeah, shadows were often considered not just projections, but vital, integral parts of a person. The Shuswap Indians in British Columbia believed a mourner's shadow could cause sickness, so powerful was its connection to death.
A shadow could make you sick.
That was the fear. Australian Aboriginal people were terrified if a mother-in-law's shadow fell on them, highlighting the awe and dread associated with certain family relationships, where even an incidental contact could be magically harmful. It reveals how the very aura of a person could be imbued with powerful, often dangerous, magical properties.
Okay, and blood, obviously, that's potent.
Immensely potent, the very essence of life, subject to equally strict taboos. Rules rigidly prevented blood from falling on the ground, like during Australian Aboriginal circumcisions, where boys were laid on human platforms to catch the blood.
So it wouldn't touch the earth.
Exactly. Among the Latuka people of South Sudan, earth scraped from where a mother gave birth, along with her washing water, was deeply buried to prevent sorcerers gaining power over her or her child. In West Africa, any dropped blood had to be carefully covered or scraped out of surfaces, largely to prevent it falling into the hands of sorcerers.
The reverence and danger, like that Irish foster mother example.
Right. Sucking the blood of an executed traitor, believing the earth was not worthy to drink it. It's a powerful testament to the sacred and dangerous nature of this bodily fluid.
What about other things? Hair, nails, spittle?
Also considered vital parts, dangerously vulnerable to sorcery, Maori chiefs in New Zealand apparently required human sacrifice after a haircut, and the hair cutter himself was also rendered tabooed, needing purification. So potent was the detached hair.
Human sacrifice for a haircut.
That's the extreme end, but it shows the power attributed to it. Clippings of hair and nails were carefully buried by Tahitians or deposited in cairns by the Sokor people of India to preserve them from magical harm. The Chiloti Indians of Chile even used enemy spittle, combined with a potato or frog in magical practices to cause illness.
Using spit for curses.
Yeah. What's particularly interesting, as Frazer notes, is that this practice of destroying hair and nails, supposedly for protection, presents this inconsistency of thought.
How so?
Destroying a vital part implies its continued sympathetic connection, right? Yet the destruction is meant to protect. It highlights the complex, sometimes contradictory logic of magical thinking.
Okay, perhaps most intriguing of all are the name taboos.
The power of names.
There was a widespread and deeply ingrained fear that merely uttering a person's true, secret name could give sorcerers immense power over them or even summon the dead.
So knowing the name was like having a key.
Exactly. Many South American tribes avoided using personal names altogether, referring to individuals indirectly, like father of so-and-so. Among the Alfoors of Sulawesi, Indonesia, not only were personal names avoided, but even common words that resembled tabooed names were changed the whole language.
In small ways, yes. For example, if a father-in-law was called Kalala, his son-in-law couldn't use the common word kawalo for horse, but had to invent a new term like riding beast.
That's incredible linguistic gymnastics.
It is. After a king's death among the Bahima of Uganda, his name was abolished from the language entirely. The ancient Egyptian myth of Isis tricking Ra to learn his secret name perfectly illustrates this belief applied even to the gods. Knowing the true name grants immense power.
So this elaborate, intricate web of caution surrounding souls, shadows, blood, names, it reveals a world where personal identity just wasn't confined to the body.
Exactly. The boundary between self and environment was far more permeable, charged with potential magical influence. As Frazer points out, that inconsistency of thought we see, like destroying hair for protection yet still believing in its connection, highlights the often unarticulated logic of magical systems. It speaks to a deep, pervasive belief in an interconnected reality, where every part of a person, every word spoken, every action taken, carried a magical resonance that could be harnessed for good or ill. The fear of externalized souls and dangerous attributes profoundly shaped individual and communal behavior, reinforcing a worldview where every interaction was imbued with potential magical consequence, compelling people to extraordinary lengths to protect their vital essence. It's a powerful illustration of the human need to define and defend the self, even when the self is distributed throughout the world.
Okay, so moving from those intricate individual taboos, let's broaden our focus now to communal efforts. The grand collective rites aimed at combating shared misfortunes, diseases, sin. What insights can we draw from this?
Well, it shows the inherent human drive to understand and control negative forces extends far beyond just personal protection, doesn't it? It shapes these community-wide rituals designed to purge evil and restore balance, often on a truly grand and visceral scale.
Yeah, these weren't subtle requests. They were dramatic collective actions.
Exactly, aimed at forcefully resetting the cosmic order. Societies across the globe developed myriad devil-driving ceremonies designed to rid an entire community of accumulated ills, misfortune, or malevolent spirits.
Like what?
In Rook Island, off Papua New Guinea, when misfortune struck, people would apparently scream, curse, howl, and beat the air with sticks to drive the devil to the sea, often specifically towards the neighboring island of Lawton, as if the evil could be physically herded away.
Wow, just shout it away.
Pretty much. Similarly, in New Britain, during times of widespread sickness, inhabitants would go out by moonlight, beating and stamping on the ground with wild howls, rushing through villages with burning torches to physically drive away the evil spirits believed to cause the illness.
Urgent, noisy, physical rituals.
Yes, aimed at scaring away unseen forces of harm through sheer collective will and dramatic action.
And the Iroquois Festival of Dreams. That sounded wild.
Oh, it was astonishing, according to the accounts. The Iroquois Confederacy inaugurated their new year with this weeks-long Saturnalia. Disguised men and women would smash things, drench obnoxious people with icy water, even throw burning brands at them. A temporary suspension of social order?
Chaos.
Controlled chaos. This preceded a general confession of sins and then a dramatic, symbolic expulsion of evil spirits by men in hideous masks, making frightful noises, scattering embers from huts. The belief was that the confession stripped people of their moral burdens, which were then collected and cast out.
And similar things in Europe. Walpurgis Night.
Right. Across the Atlantic and Central Europe, on the eve of May Day Walpurgis, night bonfires were kindled on heights. Villagers made deafening noise with whips, bells, pots, pans, screaming at the pitch of their voices to burn out or drive away the witches.
Full sensory collective acts of ritualized aggression.
Exactly. Forging a powerful sense of community against shared threats.
Okay, this communal drive for expulsion reaches a vivid peak in the elaborate disease proa rituals of the East Indian Islands. Here's where it gets truly striking.
Ah, yes, the little boats.
In places like Timur Laut or Buru, both Indonesian islands, when sickness raged through a village, a small, fully provisioned boat with an image of a man was meticulously prepared.
Provisioned, like with food.
Yeah, food, water, maybe models of goods. It was then launched and towed far out to sea, accompanied by villagers crying, "Oh, sickness, go from here. Turn back. What do you here in this poor land?"
Pleading with the sickness.
And crucially, individuals were often struck with branches, which were then carefully placed on the proa to symbolically transfer the disease demons before the boat was cast off, transferring the illness to the boat.
That was the idea. The fear was so profound that if such a proa ever washed ashore, it was immediately burned, because demons fly from fire. It highlights this deep-seated belief in both the physical transference of illness and the efficacy of fire as a purifying, expelling force. It's a testament to the sheer desperation to externalize and banish collective misfortune.
Which leads us directly to the profound and widespread concept of the scapegoat.
Right. A person or animal chosen to symbolically bear the collective sins, misfortunes, or diseases of a community and carry them away.
So concentrating the bad stuff onto one being.
Exactly. What's truly compelling here is that the transference of ills wasn't just to an inanimate object like a boat, but to living beings, allowing for a more potent, often sacrificial act of purification. This practice is incredibly ancient and widespread.
And Frazer suggested it evolved.
Yeah, sometimes evolving to the point where the killing of a god in earlier, more brutal rites became confounded with the execution of a criminal in later ages, especially as societies maybe became more civilized and opted for victims who would be put to death anyway. The core idea remained. One being takes on the burden of many.
We see powerful examples of both human and animal scapegoats throughout history, right?
Yeah.
In Uganda.
Yes. In Uganda, to avert disease or famine, the king would apparently send human scapegoats, often a man and a boy, or a woman and her child, maybe identified by some bodily defect marking them for sacrifice, along with a cow, goat, fowl, and dog to the enemy's frontier.
To the enemy's border.
Yeah. There, their limbs would be broken and they would be left to die, the intention being to transfer the plague or misfortune to the enemy's land. A truly harrowing example of externalizing suffering.
Good grief. And in Tibet, the Jalno.
Right. During the new year, a monk who offered the highest sum became the Jalno for 23 days. He exercised arbitrary manner and unsparing rigor in collecting fines and punishments, effectively absorbing the community's burden and taking on the role of a temporary, despised ruler.
So people could vent their frustrations on him.
Kind of. It allowed the community to symbolically cleanse itself of its accumulated grievances and sins through this appointed figure. The Romans also had a custom of ritually expelling old Mars, or Mamurius Veturius, at the beginning of spring, driving him beyond the city boundaries. This suggests he functioned as a scapegoat figure, carrying away the old year's ills.
Paving the way for the new season.
Exactly. A clear parallel to the Slavonic custom of carrying out death in effigy.
So the question naturally arises. What psychological and social forces compelled a community to employ a living being for this profound transfer of collective suffering?
It's a deep question. Consider the Ainu people of northern Japan, who would annually kill the great buzzard in a ritual, or the elaborate ceremonial bear sacrifice practiced by both the Ainu and the Gilyaks in Siberia.
The bear sacrifice.
In these rites, the animals are first worshipped with great reverence, then killed, feasted upon, and their bones carefully preserved in the belief of their spiritual immortality and bodily resurrection.
Worshipped and then killed.
Yeah, the Ainu ceremony, where they show both respect and sorrow for the bear before killing it and feasting on its flesh, reveals this deeply complex relationship. The animal is simultaneously divine, a sacred guest, and yet sacrificed for the community's benefit.
A belief in the continuity of life.
Absolutely. A belief in the continuity of life beyond death and the potential for the animal spirit to return and bestow further blessings. It wasn't mere cruelty, it was a profound ritual contract, designed to appease or redirect misfortunes, ensuring the well-being and renewal of the group through this ultimate act of shared sacrifice.
Okay, finally, let's turn to the widespread and enduring European tradition of fire festivals as a key communal rite.
Right, often at crucial turning points in the agricultural year, spring and summer solstice.
Lent, Walpurgis Night, Midsummer. These fires were far more than simple celebrations, weren't they? That Beltane custom in Scotland sounds intense.
Oh, it does. In Perthshire, Scotland, a cake was baked with a black bit of charcoal hidden inside. Whoever drew this piece was deemed the devoted person who is to be sacrificed to Baal, with participants making a very public show of putting him into the fire.
A show of putting him in the fire. Did they actually?
Probably not in later periods, but the ritual action was there. While later versions evolved into the burning phoenix and fire arch ceremonies, the echoes of ancient human sacrifice are still powerfully palpable. It's a chilling reminder of the deep, often dark roots of these seemingly festive traditions.
What's fascinating about these fire festivals is how Frazer tackled their purpose. He discussed two prevailing theories.
Right, and ultimately allowed for both interpretations to hold weight. The first, the solar theory, proposed by Wilhelm Manhart, viewed these fires as sun charms.
Sun charms, like helping the sun.
Kind of. Imitative magic on a grand scale, mimicking the sun's warmth and light to ensure vitality, growth for crops, health for animals, vigor for humans. A ritual attempt to strengthen the sun.
Okay, and the other theory?
The purificatory theory, put forth by Westermarck and Mach. This suggested these fires were primarily intended to burn up and destroy all harmful influences, whether those were conceived as witches, demons, or just a general taint or corruption of the air.
Burning away the bad stuff.
Exactly. Frazer, with his characteristic breadth of vision, suggests that while a custom might originate in one specific purpose, human thought, in its natural tendency to associate ideas, can layer multiple meanings over time.
So a cleansing fire could also be seen as strengthening the sun.
Precisely. A cleansing fire could very easily become associated with the life-giving sun, thus serving a dual purpose. He didn't always demand a single, exclusive explanation.
And to tie a golden thread through this section, we can connect these ancient fire festivals to the potent symbolism of mistletoe and the boulder myth. Back to Northern Europe.
Yes, brings us back nicely. The tragic myth of Balder, the bright god in Norse mythology, who could only be killed by a shaft of mistletoe.
The one thing that didn't promise not to harm him.
Right. This connects to the ancient belief that mistletoe, an evergreen parasite on a deciduous tree like the oak, was the seat of life of the oak, its invulnerable heart.
Because it stayed green when the oak looked dead in winter.
Plausibly, yes. Thus, in rituals that involve burning the sacred tree, often the oak, which was sometimes considered Balder's proxy, the mistletoe first had to be broken off. This act symbolically disarmed the tree, allowing for its ritual death and renewal in the fire.
Removing its invulnerability before sacrifice.
Exactly. It's a powerful and evocative image demonstrating the intricate web of beliefs surrounding life, death, and renewal in ancient European traditions, where every detail, even a seemingly minor parasitic plant, held profound magical significance.
Okay, as we transition to a critical reevaluation of Frazer's monumental work, it's essential to acknowledge his profound historical importance first.
Right. Oh, absolutely. The Golden Bough is, without question, a classic study of human beliefs and institutions. Hugely influential.
It shaped how people thought about myth and ritual. Writers like D.H. Lawrence, T.S. Eliot.
Yeah, it significantly influenced a generation of 20th century writers, shaping their understanding. However, and this is a big however, in academic anthropology today, while Frazer's work is still read, it's largely seen as a useful historic source for how some of the British Academy thought of savages around the time of its publication, rather than a reliable contemporary guide to understanding magic as a social and cultural phenomenon.
So more a reflection of Victorian thinking than an accurate guide to the cultures themselves.
In many ways, yes. It provides a window into Victorian intellectual thought and its particular biases as much as it does into the cultures it describes.
That's a crucial distinction. Let's unpack this critique a bit more deeply. Frazer's fundamental approach was that of a hardline rationalist, wasn't it? Deeply embedded in the intellectual currents of his time.
Very much so. Evolutionism, rationalism.
He often portrayed primitive practices as errors, as a kind of false physics or a flawed understanding of causality. He was fundamentally seeking to explain them away rather than truly understand their internal logic from the perspective of the people practicing them.
Right, imposing an external framework.
Some critics even suggest his underlying aim was, quite audaciously, to knock the last nail in the coffin of religion in the name of objective science. But this very approach, this external rationalist judgment, became the core of the critique against him.
Yeah, were these people simply mistaken in their beliefs, operating under some kind of intellectual delusion? Or was there a deeper, more profound meaning, an emotional or expressive dimension, that Frazer, with his strictly rationalist lens, might have entirely missed?
Which brings us to a pivotal point, especially when we introduce Ludwig Wittgenstein's powerful and often radical critique of Frazer.
Ah, Wittgenstein. A very different kind of thinker.
He argued that ritual practices are not primarily based on erroneous beliefs or mistaken representations of how the world works, like a flawed scientific hypothesis. Instead, he proposed that they are, first and foremost, expressions.
Expressions of what?
Expressions of wishes, of fears, of deep-seated feelings, and of a particular form of life. He famously stated that magic is not a representation of anything. It rather expresses a wish.
Okay, that's a big shift.
Huge. He argued that these practices become immediately comprehensible if understood this way, since all humans have ways of expressing wishes. It moves from attempting to explain why people believe something false to understanding what they are doing and what they are expressing through their actions.
So focus on the act, not just the supposed belief behind it.
Exactly. It's about looking at the practice itself and its inherent meaning rather than judging it against an external scientific standard of truth.
To truly grasp Wittgenstein's insight, let's maybe revisit some of our earlier examples and see how his lens reframes them. Remember the Beltane custom in Scotland, where someone drew the black bit of the cake and they made a show of putting him into the fire?
Yeah, the mock sacrifice.
Frazer, as a rationalist, found the depth in these rituals by tracing them back to what he perceived as relics of a casting of lots and their connection with the burning of a man, a literal historical origin of human sacrifice.
He looked for the historical root.
Right. But Wittgenstein challenges us to ask, what if the depth lies not in the actual historical origin, which could be uncertain and often speculative, but in what gives me reason to assume so? He suggests that the sinister, deep aspect comes from an inner experience of our own, a shared human sentiment, not just an external historical fact.
So the feeling it evokes in us is part of its meaning.
That's the idea. If this practice had originated as, say, a birthday celebration for a button maker and then simply persisted, it would lose all its depth for us unless that depth resided in the present form of the practice itself and our feelings about it, the primal fear of sacrifice, the solemnity of chance. It's about the resonance, not just the historical data.
Okay. What about the Malay woman who stripped while reaping rice? Frazer explained her action as a belief that less clothing would lead to thinner rice husks, right? A pseudoscientific cause and effect.
Exactly, a flawed hypothesis in Frazer's view.
But Wittgenstein might argue this isn't an opinion about causation, a flawed scientific theory that could be proven wrong. Instead, it could be a practice that simply exists alongside a notion, an expression of a wish for an easier harvest.
Or maybe a deep embodied connection to the fertility of the earth.
Right, where the act itself holds profound meaning regardless of its perceived scientific efficacy. It's not about judging it as rational or irrational, effective or ineffective, but about understanding its expressive power, its place in a total form of life within its cultural context. Her action is her statement.
And what's truly provocative, and where Wittgenstein turns Frazer's own gaze back upon him, is his idea that Frazer is more savage than most of his savages.
Wow, strong words. What did he mean?
He meant that Frazer, by imposing a rigid, rationalist, scientific framework onto these practices and seeing them purely as errors, created too much distance between the analyst and the practice. This distance, Wittgenstein argued, actually blinded Frazer to the very meaning and depth of the rituals.
He was too detached.
Too detached, too judgmental from an external viewpoint. Wittgenstein called for focusing on the details and looking at them from close to, recognizing that ultimate sacred postulates, those core phrases or actions at the heart of religion or magic, carry deep emotional and existential meaning without necessarily having propositional or informational content in a scientific sense.
So the meaning isn't just information.
Right. He suggests that the question, why is this happening? For practices like the King of the Wood at Nemi is fundamentally answered by their very nature, because it is terrible or impressive or horrible. The emotion the practice evokes is part of its meaning, its truth, for those who participate.
The feeling is the explanation, in a way.
In a way, yes. For Wittgenstein, understanding these practices requires an anthropology of imagination and a focus on how language and meaning emerge from engagements and relations between persons and the world, rather than through abstract, detached analysis. It's a call for empathy, for recognizing a shared human capacity for expression that transcends simple belief or logical explanation.
So what does this all mean for us today in our seemingly rational, modern world? Wittgenstein helps us reflect on how our own language, even now, is steeped in a mythology that reflects these ancient patterns of thought and feeling.
I think so. Our everyday expressions, like saying someone is as dead as death, or how we viscerally respond to big elemental concepts like fire, or even the abstract nature of political power. These aren't purely rational constructs.
They carry echoes.
They carry echoes of those first crude philosophies, expressing universal human effects and sentiments, a grammar of deep human experience that still colors our perception of reality. It's a powerful reminder that we are all, in a fundamental sense, ceremonial animals, constantly expressing deeper meanings through our actions and words, even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Which connects back to Wittgenstein's critique.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Wittgenstein's critique moves us beyond simply judging ancient practices as primitive errors and towards what he called a perspicuous representation, a clear, comprehensive, and empathetic understanding of human nature and social action.
Seeing the whole picture.
Exactly. It means acknowledging that the mystery of the ordinary is all around us, in the small shifts and reframing of our own everyday acts and speech. Wittgenstein encourages a deeper empathy and a recognition that faith, reason, and ritual are not mutually exclusive.
They're intertwined.
They're intertwined kinds of practice, part of the rich tapestry of human experience. Different ways we engage with the world and express what matters most to us. His work challenges us to look closely at our own behaviors and language, to find those deep, often unspoken expressions that resonate with the insights Frazer first brought to light, but maybe with a more nuanced and ultimately more human understanding of their true nature. #outro.
Wow. What an extraordinary deep dive into the human mind's primal attempts to control its world. From the chilling rule of Nemi to the intricate taboos that govern daily life.
Yeah.
From desperate kings sacrificing themselves for bountiful crops to communities battling invisible demons with fire and fury. We've seen how pervasive and ingenious these first crude philosophies truly were.
Ingenious and sometimes terrifying.
Definitely. Frazer, for all his limitations, undeniably opened our eyes to this global tapestry of rituals, profoundly connecting magic, religion, and the very struggle for human survival.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Frazer's The Golden Bough remains a powerful testament to the boundless human imagination and its early, ambitious attempts to make sense of the world, even if modern scholarship now reevaluates its grand conclusions and methodology.
Right. It's a monument, even if we view it differently now.
Exactly. And Wittgenstein, in particular, urges us to see these rituals not as mere errors or simply mistaken beliefs that can be corrected by science, but as profound, enduring expressions of deeply human wishes, fears, and sentiments that resonate across all time and culture.
It's a crucial call to understand the why from the inside, isn't it?
From an internal experiential perspective, rather than a purely external rationalist one, it asks for more empathy, I think.
So, as you go about your day, perhaps consider what silent wishes, what unspoken traditions, what deeply ingrained habits are woven into your own ordinary actions, what deep golden threads of ancient human experience, of magic and ceremony, still shimmer just beneath the surface of your modern world. What profound meaning, what deeply human sentiment does your behavior express, even when you're not consciously believing in magic or ritual?
Something to think about.
This has been The Deep Dive.